Welcome to Dialing In. I'm your host, Jule Salem, and this is the podcast where we talk about the real work of leadership. Not just the wins, but the moments that force us to grow, recalibrate, and reconnect. Let's go to the moment when success isn't enough. You did everything right. Top schools, big wins, saved the company millions. On paper, you're thriving. But inside, something is unraveling. In this episode, Rob Kalwarowsky shares what happened when high achievement collided with a toxic culture and how chasing performance led him to a breaking point. What followed wasn't just recovery, it was a complete redefinition of leadership. From grinding to grounded, from self-criticism to self-awareness. What really stayed with me in Rob's story is this. The pressure leaders put on themselves doesn't stay contained. It ripples into our teams, our culture, and even our results. And the shift doesn't start with a new strategy. It starts with awareness. Let's dial in. Well, to get started, I'm always curious to get people's definition of what connection and leadership means to them, and not just what it means, but what it looks like in practice.
Yes. So one of the foundational elements of leadership is trust. And if we look at like the research behind highest performing teams in the world, we're talking trust is the foundation. Psychological safety sits on top of that. And so without those two things, you never get to the highest point. When I talk about trust, I always focus on the Charles Feltman's Thin Book of Trust, where he talks about trust as four things: competency, consistency, reliability, and sincerity.
Okay. Competency, consistency, reliability, and sincerity.
Yeah. And so it's not about how we value ourselves or how we see ourselves. It's about how the other person sees us.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I always start with, okay, how are we increasing our self-awareness? And this is understanding both internally of like, what are my values? What are my strengths? How do I show up? And then also the externally is like, how do other people see me showing up? And that's where for a lot of people, we lose that. And the stats talks about 95% of people think they're self-aware when only 12 to 15% of people actually are. And so it's like how we think we're all good drivers and we're not.
Exactly.
And so for me, when I start building trust with folks, it's the sincerity piece is super key. This is showing up, being authentic in a way. I'm not saying share everything, but being more authentic, showing up as a human. And then these moments of care are really important, which is, I'm not saying that you have to tell people you love them or like do these things that are not appropriate necessarily for the context, but things like showing people you want to develop them, you want to give them good feedback, you want them to improve and achieve their goals in their career. Those things drive employee engagement, but it also shows that you're putting their interest as part of your equation too. And so that builds these high-performing environments.
Yeah, no, I love that. Two things that you mentioned stuck out to me. One, to piggyback off what you were just describing, is really having that genuine interest in your people, right? Beyond just what they're doing for you in the workplace. I know is a big part of my own philosophy. Like, how are things going outside of work? What's going on this weekend? But really being genuine and, to your point, authentic about it. And then the other is, which I think is something that's so undervalued in leadership, but how important it is to be self-aware. And to your point, I think there's a lot of leaders out there that are like, oh yeah, like, I know who I am inside and how I present. But I know even from my own experience, and, I'd like to think I'm a pretty introspective, want to grow myself and work on that daily. But sometimes you run into those moments where there's a disconnect between how you think you are and maybe how it's coming across to others. So making sure, again, to touch on what you were describing, like how we're constantly reevaluating that and making sure that they are aligned for the benefit of those that we're leading.
I mean, this is for anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing that leaders don't do enough is give feedback, but it's also receiving feedback.
Yes.
And that requires that level of trust and psychological safety. And for folks out there, psych safety is not this like rainbows and sunshine.
Mm-hmm.
I want to share all these things. Really, you can just think of it as like we learn and we're on this journey of continuous improvement.
Mm-hmm.
That's as much as you really need to see.
I think I would describe it too as like a sense of openness,
Yeah.
and for that to be comfortable and safe. And part of it too is we all have to be cognizant of how we're delivering that. I mean, whether it's me giving feedback to an employee, but then also if I'm asking for it in return, that it's not like, well, I just think you're a real jerk. You know, we all have to approach it delicately and constructively.
Yeah, 100%. And this is something that folks misconstrue. And even some people, they'll read a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott, and it says challenge directly. It doesn't give you the permission to be an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
If you show that you care about people and you're demonstrating it, then you can be more to the point.
Sure.
Right? And more direct. And I think like when we talk about this, like I always think about this as like an athlete is when I knew my coach wanted to help me, every practice I would expect feedback. I would get feedback immediately, and then we can improve. I think where we struggle in the workplace is feedback is not given that often. A lot of folks wait till quarterly performance reviews or
annually.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like, it's like, hey, Rob, I wish you would have done this 6 months ago. And you're like,
why didn't you tell me 6
Right.
months ago?
I don't even remember what you're talking
Yeah.
about, but okay. Or like in my career, a lot of what I would get, I would be like, so what can I do better? And they'd be like, you're doing great.
Mm-hmm.
Great. That doesn't help me at all.
Right. Because all can do better. So what are those areas?
So I think that's one thing that the research backs us up. If we're talking employee engagement, to get more employee engagement, to build it, like this is what people want. They want a leader who acts as a coach, who gives feedback, who focuses on their strengths, who's developing them, and who's holding them accountable to high standards. That's what people want.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's something that a lot of us miss is like, we feel like we're going to hurt their feelings, so we don't give that feedback. Or we're just caught up in our own stuff and we're thinking about our own work, so we're not giving feedback. And we're missing out on huge opportunities because there's another stat out there that 50% of people haven't heard a good comment about their work in a year. That's a problem.
And you're probably familiar, I know I've read multiple times, but I think it's like it takes 7 good things to outweigh 1 negative thing. So yeah, people not getting positive feedback about what they're doing, that's not helping either.
And it doesn't have to be game-changing, monumental things. It can literally be like, I liked how you structured that presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
even
it,
the small
right?
things.
Or, you know, that was a great piece of data analysis that you put on that slide, right? Or I loved how you responded to the client within half an hour about their concern. It doesn't need to be this like, oh, you saved us $100 million. Thank you so much, right?
Yeah.
AI can help you with this. I'm not saying they're going to give you the comment, but there's a lot of softwares out there that are like, hey, Rob, it's Friday. Remember to recognize somebody today. And like it ties into Slack. And so it's sending you a reminder. And like literally you put in the person's name, you put what they do, and it does the thing itself, right? So like there's software out there that can help you with these things.
Right.
And so use it.
To make sure that we're being more intentional about it. Because I know even myself, like I'm guilty of, from the moment I walk in the office that day, I'm doing my mental checklist of all the things that I got to get done. And most of them are like more task focused, right? Like, okay, we got to get this done. And so it is easy to get caught up in the busyness of the day and forget how important it is to make sure that we're giving those positive morsels to our team, really to help encourage them in what they're doing on the day-to-day. But I love that you shared that perspective, and I know that probably the philosophies and actions that you help people with today, I know started from your own story of what I'll call kind of disconnection or misalignment in the workplace. And to cue that up, I mean, even just from reading about all of the things that you've accomplished, having done a TEDx, a best-selling book, and running your own coaching business, helping executives and leaders how they can reach their goals and achieve peak performance, which tells me you having done all those things, you are a high achiever yourself. And so would love for you to share the story that we had talked through recently about your own experience in the workplace that really launched you on this trajectory of what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely, Jules. I'm a classic high achiever. My parents were very much into the do well in school, get into the best college, get a job, get promoted, you'll be happy. Mm-hmm. And I was on that track really early in life, and I thought that was really my thing, right? And I did well in school. I started playing water polo when I was 9 years old, just dove straight into that, was on the Canadian junior national team, went to MIT, got a degree in mechanical engineering, got a job in coal mining in Western Canada, moved out west. And then in my first year working there, I saved them over $30 million.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm ready to rock.
Mm-hmm. I am the picture of success.
Right? And I was like, I'm going to get a big promotion. They're going to be super pumped about it. And like, we're rolling, right? And I ran smack dab into a toxic culture and a toxic work manager. Mm-hmm. And it was, don't rock the boat. We're all about status quo. We've always done things this way. And it was passive aggressive. It was also just complete rejection of the things that I was bringing to the table. And that landed in my experience as like, not my skills, it was me.
Mm-hmm. Was it just like they were expressing that they weren't satisfied with your work performance? Or what was it that they were giving you feedback on that they felt was not aligning to their expectations?
It was everything that I was doing was sort of wrong. Mm-hmm. And like I was doing very basic data analysis and engineering analysis. And so it's not wrong. It's just science.
Right. It's black and white.
I was like, there's no right or wrong. This is right. Like this is what the data says. Mm-hmm. This is what physics is. And they're like, no, you're just wrong. And it was like, that was where it was landing. And I couldn't understand it. Now I understand like the psychological elements of it. But at the time, I was like, I'm an engineer. I'm just like, this is what it is. Like, there's no argument with this.
Right. What do I do? Yeah. Like, how do I make the numbers different?
Exactly. And I felt like I was like running into the wall. I was just like, I don't understand. And I kept trying different avenues. I kept trying to go around my boss to other people. I tried, like as an athlete, they tell you, just don't give up, just keep going, mm-hmm. right? And so you just stuff it down and you're just like, okay, let me figure this out.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to persevere.
But when that's the whole workplace, I started thinking I was going crazy. I was like, I don't understand. Why are these really basic concepts? Why are people telling me I'm wrong? Like, I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. I don't understand. It's a slippery slope because then you start thinking you're wrong and something's wrong with you. Mm-hmm. And that was where I went internally, was like, something's wrong with me that I can't figure this out. Something's wrong with me that I'm not succeeding when I've succeeded everywhere else using a similar strategy. Mm-hmm. And that was a slippery slope into depression. And ultimately in 2013, I tried to take my own life. And the piece here, right, is we're told in all literature and movies, it's like, you hit rock bottom. That's the moment where it's like, I wake up the next morning. That's when I'm quitting and moving.
You have the epiphany.
Right? Mm-hmm. And in reality, I was so caught in this element of like, I needed to perform, I needed to make money, I needed to succeed, to be a person, that I woke up the next morning and I got dressed and I went to work. Mm-hmm. And I consciously knew my job is killing me and I couldn't do anything about it.
I can't even imagine what that must have felt like.
It's actually the most common thing that attempt survivors encounter. And it's so contrary to what you would think. But when you start to understand the parts of us that control us in these moments, it makes so much sense. Like my book now about capitalizing on chaos, it's these parts of us that take over our brain when we're in the stress response of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. They're the ones that control us. And that's what shows up. One is we're a bad boss to ourselves. But then once we're a bad boss to ourselves, that gets out of us and starts rippling into our teams.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was that and I was beating myself up, luckily I didn't have people reporting to me at that time, but like I can't imagine how I would have led somebody else because I was so upset at myself and so angry at myself. Like, how could I show up and be a good leader?
Right.
It's not possible. And that's where I work with folks is I start with who are those destructive leaders inside of you? How do we get them to disappear or to relax so you as yourself, you as your humanness can emerge? And that's when you show up as a good leader for yourself, and that ripples out into your organization.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And, while I haven't experienced something at that level, I know I certainly have moments on the day-to-day where leading is a lot of pressure, right? Having to perform, having to be there for multiple people on your team and show up for them every day. And there are times that can feel really heavy. And so I'm curious to get your feedback on what was it as you were navigating that? What steps did you take that you found to be the most helpful to get you on the other side of that so you couldn't not just re-show up for yourself, but for others? Because the reality is like things that we face internally, those affects all of the relationships in our life, not just for our team, but our spouses, our friends, our family. So would love to hear what actionable steps were most meaningful to you.
100%. Yeah. So of course, I was dealing with severe mental illness. So I needed professional help. It actually took me a number of years to find the right help, but that is therapy, was medication with a psychiatrist. This was like, This is the treatment protocol. What you're mentioning, that's where I work with folks. I'm not a therapist. I am not a mental health professional. Every person out there goes through the ups and the downs of leadership, the pressure, the stress, I don't know if I'm going to make payroll. Like I have a client now and he's trying to figure out how does he get paid by his clients because they're behind on their bills. And so he's going, I'm under stress about paying my people because I'm waiting to get paid. That's normal entrepreneurship. And even for folks who maybe you don't run a business, maybe you're just an executive, it's got to lay people off, your team's underperforming, your boss is asking you to get more performance or cut costs or whatever. Like, this is normal. This is work. This is human.
Yes.
And so it's about where do we need to go to release that pressure? And that's where I start with the I'm human technique. And it's just taking a deep breath and having a big sigh and just saying, I'm human. And you can say it internally inside your own head. You can say it out loud. And that just releases some of that stress because after that, you can make a better decision. Because what I mentioned before is like in these moments of stress, our amygdala literally shuts down the executive functioning of our brain. This is the fight or flight response. And when we lose the frontal lobe, it's like you lose decision-making, you lose logic, you lose emotional regulation, and your perspective shrinks. And it's like, I have nothing I can do except for I have to get mad at my team, or I'm going to stop making decisions because I don't want accountability or responsibility. So I'm going to run away.
Even in probably those moments of overload, I know for myself, you can almost reach like decision fatigue where you're like, even having to make the smallest decision can feel like a burden because you're like, now I've been having to, use this brain power all day long to make decisions. So I'm going to say, so I'm human and take that pause. So I think that's great advice. So what else do you find, or even for yourself, for those that you work with, to be most helpful, particularly in those moments?
something I do a lot with my clients is I call it the inner boardroom.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. So yesterday I had a call with a client and he comes to me and he goes, "Hey, Rob, I'm trying to figure out what to do with this person on my team." And he basically lines out like two things. Like one is he wants to keep this person and focus on developing them and lean in and be like, "Hey, your performance has to improve." And the other part is, "Hey, I want to let this person go."
Mm-hmm.
And he just talked for like 10 minutes and I was like, "You've already decided." Right? But it was like,
Those are the hard decisions though, especially, if it's coming down to like having to separate someone from your team. So many, I'm very guilty of it myself, is like, no, I just want to keep working with them and we'll get to the other side of this. So often coming to that realization that it's time. Those are really the tough ones.
It's absolutely right. However, and I'm not saying this is just the only thing, but we all have these moments where it's like we have one part that's telling us to do something, the other one's going, "Don't do it."
Mm-hmm.
And in the inner boardroom is basically you sit and you visualize sitting down with the three of you and talking it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you as the facilitator or leader is sort of allowing them both to present their case.
Yeah.
And then you're deciding and getting all three of you in agreement. But ultimately, you're the leader, you're the decision maker.
Okay.
Then we know what we're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're navigating with clarity and confidence, which is like, instead of sitting there going, should I help this person and keep going? Should I let them go? Or should I invest in sales and marketing? Or should I hold cash? Like these decisions to become more obvious. And that is next level clarity. It ripples into your home environment, right? Should I take this job or stay at my current position? Should I send my kid to private school or keep them in public school? Like all those decisions start to become much clearer. And it's just finding that inner alignment, which is the starting place.
Yeah. No, I love what you just shared. I think even for me, sometimes as basic as it sounds, whether doing it mentally or I know sometimes I'll put it to writing, just weighing the pros and cons of each option. I think in today's like fast-paced world of leadership, there's an expectation often that we have to make these quick, on-the-fly, spontaneous decisions. And so what I'm hearing from you is like really just trying to take these moments of pause. It's not like it has to be days or hours, but just those simple pauses to really give yourself the space and time to think these things through.
You're right. And often our first reaction is going to be, this is 100% the truth, but our brains emotionally react and decide things before our frontal lobe catches up. That's science.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're often leaders have problems saying no, they say yes too much. So their calendars are really long. They take a lot of meetings. They do things that maybe they shouldn't be doing. And so if we take those 5 seconds to really just pause, often we can find that inner alignment and also just understand like this is our priorities and this is what we need to be clear on.
Mm-hmm.
And we can start saying no in the right spaces, but maintaining our quality or performance. And actually it gets better because then we're doing the right things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Any other advice before we kind of segue onto some other topics I was wanting to chat through with you as it relates to leading under pressure and any other tips or tricks that you would give those particularly that are leading within high pressure environments and how they can show up as the best version of themselves and their team?
The biggest thing here is understanding your responses. And so when I talk about that, it's, am I showing up when I get stressed? Do I experience fight, flight, freeze, or fawn most often? And where do those show up?
Mm-hmm.
And so like in my book, I break down the 6 different types of destructive leadership archetypes, and we all have all 6 inside of us. However, 1 to 3 of those are going to show up more often.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I have a very much an abusive kind of critical judge part that shows up a lot when It wants me to perform better, or I need to make more money, or I need to this, or I need to that.
Kind of beating yourself up.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be more of, I need to do more of this, and this.
Exactly. And so sometimes that one is very prevalent. Now, if we're talking about things like I had to go through a legal thing last year, anything legal, I was like, this stresses me out. I don't want to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I want my lawyer to just deal with it all.
Take care of it for me,
right?
Out of sight, out of mind.
And so it's like, that's the flight response. If you know that these are my two common defaults, like I have a part of me that sort of fights me and fights reality, and then I have a part of me that wants to run away, then I can start understanding when those activate, I know it, and then now I can do the I'm human so I can show up more effectively. And so it starts with that inner awareness, and then that ripples into your decisions. And you can obviously you can start using I'm human with your team too, and that helps all of you improve.
Got it. Okay. So I'm glad you touched on the I'm human again, because that's a perfect segue for what I wanted to ask you next, which is, and I don't know if this is something you see often in the work that you do, but I talk to so many leaders who are afraid of showing they're human to their team. There's this perception of they need to act like they have it all together, they know all the answers, and even maybe things that we're all, right, at some point or another, or day to day, dealing with things outside of work too. And in my view, that's all part of being human. But so often I hear people say that they're afraid to share any of that because they think that their team isn't wanting to see that side of them that they need to present as strong and having it together. And so I'm interested to get your take on that.
I work with folks like that all the time. That's actually why they come to me, to be honest, because they hear me talking about I'm human and it resonates with them. And they know internally that they need help with that part. I'm not saying you want to show up and tell your deepest, darkest secrets to your team.
No.
Right? That's not what we're doing here. Right?
Yeah.
But even like last week, I was working with a founder and he's like, over Christmas was like, I was struggling so much with internal pressure on myself because I felt like I need to know everything. Mm-hmm. Very successful sales executive in a different industry, and he joined this company as a co-founder, and it's like a new industry for him. And now he's leading like basically half the organization. And he was like, I feel like I don't know the answers to these industry specific questions, and people are asking me them, and I feel like I have to know. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, first is we got to get under that, right? But even if you were the world's greatest expert in whatever it is,
the specific industry,
nobody expects you to know everything anyways. And so it's like, that's the first thing, but it's all those inner parts that we have to work with, because ultimately as a leader, you're not expected to do everything. It's really what you want to be is the person who removes barriers so your people can succeed and do it themselves. And you're trying to develop them and coach them to get better and put the support systems around them. But ultimately, not everyone knows everything anyway. You just got to show up as you. And if people ask you like, hey, Rob, can you help me implement AI in my organization? It's like, I'm sorry, this is not what I do. Right? And I can help find somebody who does that, or I can we can work and try to understand it together. But you have to be very clear on these things. And people don't expect the greatest thing in the world from everybody.
Sure. Yeah, because I think even what you just described, I see a lot too, in the example of your client where they're new leaders coming into an organization, and then maybe a lot of your direct reports have been with the company for a long time. So they have all of this institutional knowledge and know how to do all the day-to-day tasks. And so I have on my end heard repeatedly where it's, okay, but I've come in and I don't know all those things. And so almost a sense of like insecurity, but all of my direct reports know how to do all the things, and I'm feeling like I should know those things too. So yeah, I think it's that balance of, hopefully giving grace to yourself, and to your point, knowing that it's okay to not have all the answers. That's why those individuals are in the roles that they're in, to help support you. And then I always joke and say, I feel like one of my biggest responsibilities as a leader is to be really like helping chief problem solver, right? So you can come to me with questions. I may not know the answer myself, but the goal is to help lead others. Well, first, hopefully enable them to the extent they can, utilize their resources to find the answers. But if they can't, being able to rely on us, that if we don't know, we'll figure it out together.
Yeah. One of the most common masks that I see, or parts that people wear, is this version. I call it the do-it-yourself leader, a DIY mask.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically, I have to do everything myself. And they'll say things like, I would delegate that, but I don't know if my team will do it the right way. Or it's faster if I just do it myself than teach somebody else how to do it.
Yes.
Or I got to check what they do to make sure it's perfect before it goes out. And really what that is it's a super highly critical part on yourself. It's that inner judge and inner critic. And it's like getting in tune with that and just allowing it to feel safe, because it's worried. And it's just a fight response. It's worried about what's going to happen when you're under stress, that you're going to make a mistake and then it'll be some catastrophic thing will happen, which inevitably doesn't.
Exactly. I will be the first one to attest. I'm often guilty of that. It's that perfectionist mentality, I think, that I still carry.
I can help you.
There we go. I might have to engage you for some coaching myself. But one thing I think that I've learned along the way, and actually I was just telling a friend this yesterday, is our goal, particularly if we are responsible for leading and growing an organization, is how can we make it not dependent on us? And really what I love is the magic happens when, you're adding more people to the team and everyone is best at what they do in their roles. And that's really when you're able to collectively make bigger things happen. If it's all reliant on me or whoever the leader in place is, you're going to be so limited, because going back to that, I'm human, we can only do so much ourselves independently. So yeah, giving our teams and those that we're leading the freedom and taking the time when needed to show them how to do it. So then going forward and for the long run, they can run with it themselves.
It is so common, and yet it works. So I worked with a client. I still work with him, but in 2024, he came to me and he was your classic DIY leader. And it makes sense. So 6 years prior to him coming to me, he founded this company. It was him and one other guy, and the two of them built this company into revenue of 3 million, 30 people. They were rolling. Now, they had been stuck at that $3 million mark for 3 years. And this guy was working all the time. He was working 7 days a week. He was working on vacation. He was burnt out. He was really hitting his limit. And it was the same stuff. Like, he would want to be part of every decision. He would be micromanaging some of the client interactions. When he would get stressed, he would get into the minutia of project management and these small things. And it took us 4 sessions. And then he said to me, he had this realization. He was like, Rob, I'm holding my business back. And that was the moment where he turned from the DIY, I have to do everything, effectively individual contributor,
yes,
to I am the leader. And over the next 5 months, his business grew from 3 million to 11 million. And of course, it took a few months to get the team to trust that he was stepping back and coaching, but they ultimately started doing their jobs more effectively than he could do them, obviously.
Right.
And so it's like now he works less than he did before, and they're 4 times the size they were before. It works. And it starts with the realization of I'm the one who's trying to stay as I have to do it all myself. But once you empower your team to do things and you put the processes and the systems in place, they will engage and they will go out and they'll learn how to do their jobs better than you can.
Exactly. And that should be the goal, right? that they can do it better.
And if you're hiring the right people,
yes,
they will do it better because that's why they're hired.
Correct. Because they're the best at doing that thing. Yes. And the hope is too that they get a sense of fulfillment in doing that because that is their thing. Now, I will side note and say there may be people listening to this who maybe they're an early stage founder and they haven't reached the point where they can bring on as many people as they need. And I've been there myself. And there are those moments of grind. You got to grind it out. You got to do the work. But, to piggyback off what you're sharing, I would wholeheartedly advocate for the goal should be that you're growing to a place where you can bring others onto the team, because to be able to really fully expand where you want to take your business. Because I know I love what I do. I love running a business. I love growing a business. And I'm often guilty of working, if you will, although I genuinely enjoy the work that I do. But I have started noticing that not working so much, right? Not doing the 7 days a week, I show up better for my team and myself and those around me, and I'm better at my job for it. And so I think you hit on something so important, because I think really even within the United States, I think in particular, there's this mentality of, no, you got to keep grinding it out and working and putting the hours in, and not necessarily making the space to going back to those pauses we were talking about. But I know from my own experience, I show up so much better when I'm not pushing it to the limit every single day.
Here's a stat for you, Jule. It's happy leaders naturally create happier teams because it's some social science thing. But as leaders, our emotions ripple out into our organizations. And happy teams are 300% more innovative.
300%. Wow. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so especially in these moments of where our chaos is at all-time highs, where who knows what's happening in politics, in the world, in our finances, in technology. It's in order for your business to succeed, you need those high levels of innovation, because 6 months from now, who knows what we're going to be able to do with AI. Mm-hmm. But if we're thinking about it and we're able to be nimble and we're able to be creative, our people will be able to take advantage of these moments before other companies, before our competitors. And we can take advantage of this specific moment in time where we've never seen this disruption at the level it's at right now in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. And the other thing you said, which is really important, is take this back to athletics. There is no athlete on the planet who trains 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
They got to throw in a rest day.
Right? And so for some reason in business, we're yeah, of course we can work 7 days a week. Or we're Silicon Valley, we do the 996 schedule.
Yeah.
And it's that's not how our brains work. Mm-hmm. LeBron James spends $1 million a year on his body recovery. We're not expecting him to play 48 minutes a game, 82 games a year plus the playoffs. And as leaders, we need to take that into our own lives too. And our brains work the best when we have 7 to 9 hours of sleep, when we're happier. And the other thing is we're most creative when we bring play and activities and things where our subconscious is thinking about solving those problems, but we're focused on playing with our kids.
Right. Making time for fun.
Or you're having a shower and your brain's oh shit, Rob, this is the answer to your question. That actually happened to me the other day. I was washing the dishes and I was oh shit, I got it.
I figured it out. Yeah.
And I wasn't even consciously thinking about that. I was listening to some
Isn't
podcast
that so
about the Super
true?
Bowl.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're not thinking about it, the answers come. I even had my own like a small epiphany this morning. I know it's all relative, but it's been like cold for Florida in recent weeks. And our dogs have been acting a little crazy, just like extra spunk, a little rowdy. And I told my husband when I was getting ready this morning, I was like, I need to start making the time again to take them for long walks. They've got this like pent up energy that just needs to come out. And so I paused for a second. I was like, Jule, like that's probably true for you too, right? Like I haven't made time to work out this week. And I'm like, I'd probably feel so much better. Yeah, just to get this release of like, energy. So funny how just sometimes random things will like put the pieces together for us. I feel like we could chat about all these different things all day long. I love talking about this. But as we look to wrap up, just kind of one closing question I wanted to ask is, I know we've been talking a lot about leaders and executives and overall high achievers, and even to touch on like having to do the work and having to put the work in. And I wanted to get your feedback on, because I know people that I talk to what we were talking about, they're grinding it out and maybe have lost the sense of meaning in what they're doing. And I was interested in getting your thoughts and feedback on what advice you would give on how they can refine that and feel like they're aligned with the work that they're doing.
This is one of the hardest questions.
But I know you have the answer.
Where I always start with people is your values.
Okay.
And there's many different ways to do this. You can literally go online, print off a list of 200 values, and basically just put them into 3 categories: yes, no, maybe. And then take that list of yeses and refine it to 5 to 10. And then if you want to take it to the Brene Brown level, she says refine it to 2, which I love because then you're able to make decisions. You can also, something that I do with my clients is tell me a story about your life since you were in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And those big decision points help you understand what your values are. I moved here because of this. Well, did you like that or did you not like that? Oh, I like that. Okay, that means that I value whatever, right?
Okay.
Something like, oh, I decided to go to MIT over University of Toronto. Why did you do that? Well, I value the prestige in that institution. Did that make me happier or not?
Mm-hmm.
That leaves you with an answer of, and if it didn't make you happy, why? Right? That means it's not your value. That starts to help you distill, like, what do you actually value in your life?
Discerning what's important to you.
Exactly. And when you start to understand what's important to you, the next thing I always like to do is something called the reflected best self exercise, which is get 5 to 10 people who are very close to you, get them to tell you a story about when they saw you at your best, and start looking at what are the common threads, what are the traits that I'm displaying, what are the things that I'm doing, and what are those common threads throughout those. Because it's going to tell you again, like, what are the things that you're good at? What are the things that you value? Where are you showing up at your best? And what are you doing when you're doing those things?
Yeah, that's a good one. Because I know sometimes I think other people are better at seeing those light bulb moments, or like I call it, kind of your brightness, that we sometimes overlook ourselves. So asking others to give that feedback.
And the last one for finding a little bit of purpose and meaning is, where were moments of struggle that you can find to turn that into your purpose? And so for me, going through the toxic work environment and toxic leadership, now that's the reason why I got into leadership coaching, was I don't want anyone to experience that like I did.
Mm-hmm.
That helps you keep that meaning. Other people, it's going to be something different, but it's a very common theme, as like, how do you take this moment of struggle and turn it into something positive in your life? Because there is meaning in suffering.
Yeah, even taking it back to sports, which I use a lot. I equate my team, we're a football team, right? We all have our individual best strengths and the other things we're not so good at. our hardest moments in life, whether it's like a big challenge in business or with our team, really, from my own experience, those are the biggest growth moments where we learn the most. And so to your point, it's how can we take those experiences and how we grew and what we learned from that, and then be able to help apply that in helping others.
100%.
Love that. Well, Rob, thank you so much for your time today. If people are interested in learning more about you and who you are, what you do, where is the best place for them to find you?
Yeah. First thing, thanks for having me, Jule. It was great to chat. And for folks out there, you can find me, robkalwarowsky.com. You can buy my book, Capitalizing on Chaos, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's on 120 different audio book sites, so Audible or whatever one you use, it's there.
Perfect.
Those are the best places to find me, or you can follow me on LinkedIn as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Again, appreciate your time. We'll talk soon. Thank you for tuning in to Dialing In. I hope this conversation brought you something meaningful, whether it's a new way to lead through complexity, a reminder of the power of connection, or simply the comfort of knowing you're not navigating leadership alone. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful if you'd share it with a colleague, a leader in your circle, or someone who could benefit from the insights we explored. The more leaders we bring into this dialogue, the more positive change we can create. And if you have a story of disconnection, reconnection, or breakthrough that you think would help others, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out, tell me a bit about your journey, and let's explore whether it could be a fit for a future episode. This episode of Dialing In was produced by Michael Osborne of 14th Street Studios, edited by Talia Anili, and mixed by Morgan Honecker. Until next time, keep dialing in one moment of connection at a time.